Hi students, Assalamu alaikum. This is Wahid Yusuf with another lecture on this topic, a relative clause. In yesterday's lecture, we discussed the types of relative clause. We discussed a defining relative clause. We discussed a non-defining relative clause, in which I told you that defining relative clause is that clause which is essential as far as the sentence is concerned. If we remove that, the meaning of the sentence is changed. So that is essential. A relative clause, defining relative clause, that is essential. And as far as the non-defining relative clause is concerned, that is also known as non-essential clause. If that clause gives extra information about the subject or the object, about the person, about any noun which is present in the sentence. So that gives an extra information to the reader. So if we remove that clause from the sentence is not affected, the meaning of the sentence is not changed or affected. So these things we discussed in the previous class. And we also discussed the table of pronouns, that some pronouns are used for persons as subjects, some pronouns are used for persons as objects, some pronouns are used for things, animals as subjects, some persons are used as for these things as objects, and some pronouns are used for showing possession. They are used for showing possession of persons and possession of animals. So those things we discussed in the previous lecture, and today we shall discuss how these pronouns are used as far as they are concerned, how these pronouns are used. For example, these pronouns who, which, and that, they are used for subjects, they are used for objects as well. These pronouns, these are used for subjects, for persons, for things. These are used for objects, for persons and for things. And whose, of which, that is used for persons, that is used for things as well when we show possession. So coming to this, see, as far as relative clauses are concerned, we use relative pronouns in them. Relative pronouns. As the table in the earlier, the table which was here a little bit earlier, I told you that we have some pronouns, relative pronouns that are used for persons only, and we have some relative pronouns that are used for things, animals, or other than persons. So some pronouns are used for persons when the persons are used as subjects. Some pronouns are used for persons when the persons are used as objects, and some pronouns when the person shows some possession. And in the same way, some pronouns used for things when the things are subjects, some for things when the things are objects, and some shows the possession of things. Now we'll discuss these. These are the main pronouns which are used in relative clauses, and we'll discuss them, how they are used, and with which they are used, and when they are used. For example, sometimes we place the relative clause after the subject, sometimes we place the relative clause after the object, and sometimes the subject is person, sometimes the subject is thing, sometimes the object is person, sometimes the object is thing. So we'll discuss them. These are the relative clauses. For example, this is possessive case, this is objective case, and this is subjective case. These pronouns are used as subjects, when they are used when the person and the thing is used as subject in the sentence. And these pronouns are used when the thing, when the person, when any other thing, when that person is the object in the sentence. These are used for objects. They are used for subjects, and they show possession. Whose or of which? Of which is another, but it is better to use whose, because we can use whose instead of which. So who, which, and that. Who, which, and that. They are used for they are used for subjects. They are used for subjects. For example, see in exam, for example, you will get two sentences, sentence 1 and sentence 2. Sentence 2. Uh, listen to me carefully. Sentence 1 and sentence 2. And you'll be asked that you have to join these two sentences by changing one of the sentences into relative clause. One of the sentences into relative clause. For example, you will change this sentence into relative clause. Now, we have to check whether this sentence talks about the subject or the object of this sentence. So this sentence, it either talks about the subject, it either talks about the object, or it talks about the possessive. It talks about possession. For example, something of subject or something of object. Something of subject or something of object. So if this clause, if this sentence talks about the subject, we have to use these pronouns. We have to use these pronouns. If this sentence talks about the object, we have to use these pronouns. We have to use these pronouns. If this sentence talks about the possession, we have to use this pronoun. We have to use this pronoun. I hope you might have understood this method. What we have to look for. See, I'll give you examples by which you can understand it very nicely. But before that, see, if we have subject and object, this is a sentence, and we have to make a clause. We have to write a clause. If this clause is about subject, if this relative clause is about subject, we have to use who or that. We have to use who or that. We have to use who or that if this subject is a person. If this subject is a person. If the subject is a thing, use which. If the subject is a thing, use which. We can use that as well. But that should be only defining relative clause. That is used in only defining relative clause. So better to use which, because which is used in defining relative clause as well as non-defining relative clause. So if the relative clause talks about the subject and the subject is a person, we use who or that. If the subject is a thing, animal, we use which. We use which or that. But only that is only used in defining relative clauses. So better to use which. So now, if this clause talks about the object, we have to use whom, that, whom, who, that, or which. So if the object is a person, we'll use whom, we'll use who, we'll use that according to the sentence, according to the suitability. And if the object is other than person, if the object is something other than the person, we'll use which or that. That conditional, because the sentence, the clause should be defining relative clause, then and only we can use this, that. So better to use which. You better use which. So one thing, when we use this relative clause for the subject, we use these pronouns. When we use this relative clause for object, we use these pronouns. And when we use this relative clause to show possession of the subject or object, we use whose. Now I'll make you people to understand with examples. As far as the examples are concerned, I'll make you understand with the help of examples now. How these pronouns are used for subjects as far as relative clause is concerned, how these pronouns are used for objects as far as relative clause is pronoun, and how this pronoun is used to show possession. The people live on an island. They are very friendly. Understand this. See, I am showing you the pattern. I am showing you in such a way, in such a way that your examination pattern will be easy for you. Because in exams you are asked like this. You are asked that there are two sentences. Change one of those sentences into a relative clause. See, we have two sentences. Sorry, I think I shall write this here. It will be better. The people live on an island. The people live on an island. They are very friendly. They are very friendly. See the sentence. First sentence is the people live on an island. They are very friendly. They are very friendly. See, as far as the sentences are concerned, both these sentences, they are complete in itself. They are complete in themselves. This is first sentence and this is second sentence. Now, the thing is, whether this sentence, for example, if you are going to change this sentence into a relative clause, so we'll first check whether this sentence talks about the object, whether this sentence talks about the subject, whether this sentence talks about the object of the sentence, whether it talks about the subject. If it talks about the object, we should employ these pronouns. If it talks about the subject, we should employ these pronouns. So first check, when you attempt a question like this, first you will check the sentence which you are going to change into relative clause. About whom that sentence talks about, whether the sentence talks about the subject of the sentence or the object of the sentence. This is first. So we'll say they are very friendly. Who? The people. So it talks about the subject. It talks about the subject of the sentence. Now we'll see whether this subject is any person or a thing, because we have to use pronouns accordingly. If this is person, we'll use who. If that is anything, we can use which. So the people, they are persons. So what will we do? We'll write the people. See, we have two ways. Sometimes we write the relative clause. This is subject. We write the relative clause after the subject, and then we write the rest of the part. And sometimes it should be done according to the convenience of the sentence. See, we can write this sentence in two ways. The people live on an island who are very friendly. So we placed the relative clause after the object. So two ways, after the subject and after the object. This is object and this is subject. We can place the relative clause after the subject and then write the rest of the sentence. We can place the relative clause after the object. That is after completion of the first sentence. See, the people live on an island. So we can do it like this. The people live on an island who are very friendly. Another, the people who are very friendly, live on an island. In first sentence, we have this part as sentence, then we have this part is independent clause, then we have another part. This is a relative clause. This one is a relative clause. And in second sentence, we have this part as relative clause. We have this part as relative clause. So the first sentence of this exercise, we discussed two sentences which we converted into one sentence by using a relative clause, by converting one sentence into a relative clause. And we checked that the relative clause talks about the subject of the sentence, and the subject is person. That is why we wrote who. Or I can write, I saw my friend. My friend told me to meet him. See, if we have to change these two sentences into one by changing one sentence into relative clause. For example, we'll change this sentence into relative clause. So first we'll check this sentence, that is, my friend told me to meet him. This sentence, whether it talks about the object or whether it talks about the subject. So my friend told me to meet him. So it is about object, my friend. Or we can simply have written, we can simply write, he told me to meet him. So this he told me to meet him, it talks about my friend. It is a sentence which informs us about my friend. So it talks about the object. In the first sentence, the second sentence talks about the subject. In this sentence, the sentence talks about the object. So when there is object, we'll employ these: whom, who, that, which. Accordingly, whatever will be the suitable, whatever pronoun will be appropriate, we'll use that. So I'll write, for example, I saw my friend. Who told me to meet him. So this sentence, I saw my friend, he told me to meet him, became I saw my friend who told me to meet him. Another example I can write. Second example, I found a watch. It is made of gold. See, this sentence, it talks about the object watch. I found a watch. It doesn't talk about this subject I. It talks about the watch. So we can write, I found a watch which is made of gold, because it is not a person. If it would have been a person, we would write who. We would write that. But it is a thing. It is something else than the person. So we'll write which is made of gold. Or we can write like this: a watch which I found is made of gold. So two ways, as per your preference, you can change sentences like this in two ways. For example, I found a watch which is made of gold. And another, a watch which is made of gold is a watch which I found is made of gold. One if I found a watch which is made of gold. In sentence 1, which I found is a relative clause, and in sentence 2, which is made of gold is a relative clause. In the same way, I saw my friend who told me to meet him. Who told me to meet him. I saw my friend who told me to, I saw my friend, he told me to meet him. And as far as the relative clause is concerned, we have this part as relative clause, and the sentence becomes, I saw my friend who told me to meet him. And another way of changing this sentence, my friend whom I saw. My friend whom I saw, told me to meet him. See, as far as these pronouns which are used instead of objects, see, whom is used for persons, who is used for persons, and which it is used for things. Extra, it is used for things. And that it is used for persons sometimes, and sometimes things also, but that depends upon defining relative clause and non-defining relative clause. So that is why we used which here, because it was an object. The object was a non-living, the object was a thing. It was not a person. We used whom here because the object was a person. So we can use who also. We used who here because the object is a person. We used which here because the object is a thing. We used which here because the object is a thing. We used whom here because the object is the person. Now we shall discuss how we can use this possessive pronoun. Possessive pronoun, it is only one or two, whose or of which, and whose is used with both persons as well as things. So there is no need to take care of these pronouns, which one to use. When there is possession, we can use whose for persons, whose for things as well. See, the movie is about a spy. His wife betrays him. His wife deceives him, betrays him. See, when we have two sentences, and one sentence talks about the subject, we use these pronouns. When we have two sentences and one sentence talks about the object, we use these pronouns according to the person. For example, the person is a subject, the subject is a person. According to the subject, for example, the subject is person, we'll use who. We'll use that. So the subject is a thing. The subject is a thing. We'll use which. The object is a person. We'll use who, whom, who, that. The object is a thing. We'll use which. See, I made you understand that when this sentence, for example, when one of the sentence talks about the subject, we use these pronouns. When one sentence talks about the object, we use these pronouns. Then it is up to you. If the subject is a person, how to use these? If the subject is a thing, how to use these? If the object is the person, which pronoun to use? If the object is the thing, which pronoun to use? That we discussed it already. Now, the third thing is, if one sentence neither talks about the subject nor talks about the object, but it talks about the related thing of the subject or the object, that is why possessive pronoun is used. See, the movie is about a spy. His wife betrays him. This sentence, it is not directly talking about the movie or a spy. It is not directly talking about the movie or a spy. It talks about the wife of the spy. It talks about the wife of the spy. So it talks about the relation of this spy. That is why a possessive case is used. That is why a possessive pronoun is used. So we'll write the movie is about a spy. The movie is about a spy whose wife betrays him. The movie is about a spy whose wife betrays him. So this whose, it is used where there is possession, where there is some possession, some relation is shown, some possession of the subject or of the object. So whose is used where there is some possession. Possession can be of a person or a thing. I'll write another example. She saved a rabbit. She saved a rabbit. Its leg was wounded. She saved a rabbit. Its leg was wounded. Second sentence. See, subject is she, object is a rabbit. So this sentence, it neither talks about the rabbit, it neither talks about the rabbit nor about the subject, that is she. It talks about the rabbit's leg, rabbit is belonging. It talks about the rabbit's relation, rabbit is belonging. So we'll write she saved a rabbit whose leg was wounded. I hope you might have understood these sentences because I made it very simple for you, and I explained it to you with lot of examples, and I hope you might have understood it. And with this I conclude today's lecture, and this is the conclusion of relative clauses as well. So till we meet the next time, I wish that you would watch these lectures and you will get something as far as your examination is concerned. You prepare yourself for your examination. You practice a lot at your home. So Allah Hafiz, and thank you.